That's my new thing now. Whenever they start saying I'm young, I just take the mic. I'm tired of it now. But with all seriousness, thank you all for being here. I want to start by saying thank you to the staff who worked on this. I know I was getting emails from Cameron Burns at 3:24 in the morning. I wasn't up, I was asleep. I woke up and saw 3:24 in the morning email from Cameron. So Cameron, the rest of my office, and the other and I think my only bone to pick this morning is I have to speak after Moses Apian, Lane, Karthik, and Ashley Swearingen. I think it's a little bit unfair. I should have went first, but I'll do my best. And thank you all for being here. So I'll be brief, but I say on the program it says a bold vision for Inland California. But I think the status quo, the reality we're living in now is pretty bold. I find it very bold and almost radical that in the 5th largest economy in the world, there's areas of concentrated poverty, like Inland California, where 1 in 4 residents live in poverty. That's bold. I find it bold and radical that in a community of 700,000 people, San Joaquin County, that there's now one institution of higher learning in the county. That's public. I think that's bold. I think that's radical. I find it bold and incredibly radical that in a state that's fighting the current administration around environmental standards, environmental protections, that there's areas all through Inland California where kids are dying early because of asthma. I find it bold and I find it radical that in a state that's a side of resistance, the state that has all these progressive values, that we put jobs in one part of the state, but affordable housing hours away in others. I find it bold and I find it incredibly radical that in a progressive state, we have folks who are working in the fields, being exposed to pesticides, and oftentimes not given the right to organize. I think that's what's bold, and that's what's radical, and that's a vision that's not in line with who we are as a region, as a state, as a community. And I think that brings us all here today to talk about how do we move from this bold vision to a vision that's actually more in line with our values and who we said we are as a Golden State. I submit to you today that it's impossible to be a Golden State if the state is not golden for all. And I would also say it's hard to be a Golden State if we don't abide by the golden rule. The rule we're all taught growing up. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If it's not okay in one part of the state for the last 30 years, 92% of homicides to all be young men of color, then it's not okay for that to be the case in Inland California. If it's not okay for one part of the state for folks to have to commute 2-3 hours one way to get to work, it's not okay for that to be the case in Inland California. If it's not okay for folks to work all day in the fields and pick our food, but then not be able to afford said food in one part of the state, then it's not okay for it to be the same in this part of the state, in Inland California. So a big part of this Regions Rise Together, a big part of this Inland California conversation is a simple one, again, rooted in our common values. That in California, we understand that everyone, and when I say everyone, I truly mean everyone and everywhere has value. Everyone and everywhere is important. And I would also say we heard from Mayor Swearingen and we heard from Moses Apian some of the jarring statistics. And I think what gets me about the statistics is that they're not acts of God. These are policy choices. These are investment choices. These are acts of men. These are things we have agency and power to control. It's no surprise. And for example, in the city of Stockton, where the biggest state investment in the past 10 years has been a $400 million courthouse, then it's no surprise to me that there's high rates of incarceration and low rates of college attainment. That seems almost by design. It's no surprise the disparities we talk about because, again, these are choices. But what's inspiring about today is that because they're choices made by people like us, we have the agency and the power and the solemn opportunity to do something to change it. And that's what Inland California Rising is about. And I could speak for the whole region. I'm going to brag a little bit about Stockton because we're here. Because in Stockton, we're not just talking about the disparities. We're not just pointing fingers and being upset about the disparities. We're actually trying to do something about it. We realize that it's unacceptable that of the 100 largest metro areas in this country, that we're number 99th in terms of adults with a 4-year degree at 17.7%. So instead of talking about it and issuing white papers about it and bemoaning it, we're actually doing something about it. We put $20 million to ensure that for the next decade, every single student who graduates from our largest school district is guaranteed a scholarship to a 2-year school, 4-year school, or trade school. And we're also working with the administration and the legislature to make sure that when a new CSU is built, it's built in the largest community without a CSU, which is right here in Stockton, California. In Stockton, we've had problems with gun violence for the past 30 years. We've been double, if not triple, the state average for most of those 30 years. And instead of just talking about it, being upset about it, and most of us, instead of just tweeting about it, we're actually doing something about it. For the past 6 years, we've been involved with the ceasefire effort. We had advanced peace on top of that, with an understanding that the most important investment we can make as a community is an investment in our people, all our people, every person, because that's how we grow our city, which will grow our region and grow our state. And instead of just talking about poverty and complaining about how 1 in 2 Americans can afford one $400 emergency, we're doing something about it. We're piloting a program called SEED, a basic income demonstration, where for the last 6 months before the next 12, 125 Stocktonians, some working, some not, some rich, some not, some poor, some not, some disabled, some not, but all are given $500 a month to show that people aren't asking for handouts, they're asking for opportunity and a nice foundation upon which to build on. So as I conclude, I think the charge for us today and then tomorrow, because the conference is always the easy part. It's always easy to take pictures and to Snapchat. Most of you guys don't Snapchat probably. I mean, tweet. And Facebook, but the hardest part is the work that we have to do and the work that we all do when we go wake up in the morning. And some of you guys have been doing this work for 10, 20, 30 years. And I think, but the challenge is what I learned 8 years ago when I was on the Freedom Rides with some of the original Freedom Riders. And we were going through like Anniston, Alabama, and places like that. And one guy, Bob Singleton, he looked at me and he said, "Michael, I was arrested on August 4th, 1961. Why is that day important?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, you were arrested. If you weren't arrested, I wouldn't be on this bus. I wouldn't have all the opportunities I have now." And he looked at me and rolled his eyes and he said, "No." He said, "On that day, Barack Obama was born." And then he said he had no idea that the choice he made on that day would pave the way so that 50 years later, a child born with no opportunity, a child born without the opportunity to vote, without the opportunity to get a cup of water at the counter, would have the chance to one day be president. And he looked at me like I'm looking at you, and he said, "What are you prepared to do today so that a child born today has more opportunity than you have 50 years later?" And that's the question before us throughout this conference and then tomorrow and next week. It's what are we prepared to do today in the institutions we operate in, with the purse strings we hold, with the influence we wield? What are we prepared to do today so a child born today, 50 years later, isn't born into a community of concentrated poverty? What are we prepared to do today so that 50 years from now, there's not another mayor having another convening at another school talking about the same issue of how Inland California lags behind the rest of the state? What are we prepared to do today so that 50 years from now, people look back and say, "You know what? The state of California was a golden state and a golden state for everyone." What are we prepared to do today so that 50 years from now, Inland California isn't just rising, but it's risen, and we truly are a test case for this nation that reasons can rise together. So thank you and have a great conference.